Welcome to another edition of the Hoop Scoop. I'm Jared Johnson. I'm joined by the mighty Joe Yeager. Well, mighty Joe was a barn burner. Double victory for Texas Tech over a very game. And I would say, I want to give them credit, but man, you bank in two shots, one from deep officially, one just inside the three-point line. You're having a good night. Lady Luck is with you. But Tech, again, was able to persevere and snatch victory out of the jaws of defeat. With a big win to keep things going, momentum going, the resume going, and all that. What was your overall takeaway from Texas Tech's big victory over Arizona State?
Well, I mean, no defense makes for exciting games.
Yeah,
yeah. And it was on both sides. And it's easy to focus on Texas Tech's defensive problems. I mean, we're Texas Tech people, and we're critical, and so forth and so on. But you could just as easily focus on how good Texas Tech was offensively. Because, I mean, that's what kept you in the game for the most part. And so you kind of expect that out of Texas Tech to be really good offensively. But they rang the bell in that regard again, which kept the game close. I mean, Chance McMillan hit that follow-up shot, sending it into overtime, and that's kind of what he does as a guard, is get in there and scrap on the boards, particularly the offensive glass. Paid huge dividends last night. And then in overtime and double overtime, when you had to get a little bit salty on defense, they did. They started getting much more aggressive on the perimeter, getting a lot of hands-here, slapping at balls, deflections, steals, so forth and so on, and they got just enough stops down the stretch when they needed to pull out the victory, and that was basically the difference right there.
Yeah, a couple of guys had really big games offensively. Obviously, JT Toppin, 42 points, 15 rebounds. 3 steals, 2 blocks. Oh, Darian Williams, though, by the way, had 27 points and a monster performance from him. It seems like despite Tech really being a perimeter-oriented team, those two guys really pounded the paint, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it was those two guys versus Arizona State's guards.
Yeah,
is what it turned out to be. But by the same token, you can't overlook Kerwin Walton's crazy 13-point outburst to start the second half. Who saw that coming? I mean, he hadn't done anything in the first half, and so you thought, oh well, Kerwin's AWOL again. We're not going to get anything out of him, and then boom. So that got Tech off to a good start in the second half. But yes, I mean, Texas Tech had a serious inside advantage with Toppin and Williams. They were missing Jaden Quaintance, their big freshman, 6'9" guy, really good rebounder, good defensive player. Tech took advantage of that, got their other big, Sean Phillips, in foul trouble early on, and so it all worked out well for Texas Tech inside. And, I mean, the last thing you want to do is help out JT Toppin. With fouls, injuries, whatever. You need everything to try to slow that guy down. And he just had an absolutely monster night. Yeah, and Darian Williams, obviously, again, if Toppin hadn't gone off so much, we'd be talking about Darian Williams because he had one of his best games of his Texas Tech career. So two huge performances from both of those guys.
Yeah, and Christian Anderson, the true freshman, who doesn't really look like had never really looked like a true freshman, came up really big with some heady plays. I thought that one sequence was ironic. Can't remember if it was at the end of regulation or one of the overtimes, but where he got a steal late and then led to Kerwin Walton, looked like he had a layup to kind of seal the game.
Yep.
And then, man, Arizona State made a great defensive play. So he had, in that one sequence, 2 great defensive plays in a game that was obviously featured, almost solely by the offensive play. But overall, Anderson made some heady plays, played good defense when they were trying to pick on him, and then made some big shots, ended up in double figures.
Yeah, I'm beginning to think that Christian Anderson is probably Tech's best on-ball defender right now.
Oh, wow.
He's a pest. I mean, he's not a big guy. He needs to get physically stronger. He's kind of light in the britches. But he can get into people and just hound them with very, very quick hands, good instincts in that regard. And, he leads the team in steals per minute played. There's no doubt about that. So Tech is not going to have a lockdown defender this year. It just doesn't happen. It's just not happening. That's not the way it's going to be. But if you need somebody to really step up on the defensive end on the perimeter, he's the most likely candidate, I think.
I feel like Elijah Hawkins and Kevin Overton may have hit a wall. Some of their games haven't been.
In Federico.
And Federico, yeah, he's really struggling. I mean, he got dunked on about as hard as you could get dunked on in the game of basketball against Arizona State. But I'm still counting on those guys to come back. You know, it's like the ebb and flow. It's like like the ocean, the waves coming up and down, all that tide coming in and out. I feel like those two guys will be counted on in the future, or those three guys in the future, possibly coming up with the next game against Oklahoma State. You know, I watched the end of that game against TCU where they had it all but one, and TCU made this shot with like 1 second left, but they had to throw the ball the length of the court. It was deflected. A guy made a three, and that was crazy. You know, Oklahoma State, new coach and staff, a lot of the new roster, and they're trying to figure things out. But I think this is another game where, I mean, you can't just take them lightly and show up. I mean, I just don't. I don't think Texas Tech's good enough, and I think they're good. Don't get me wrong. I think Tech is very good, but the Big 12 was tough enough that if you don't show up ready to play, you can get beat on any given night. And I know that's a cliche, but I think the game against Arizona State at home, no less, shows you that.
No doubt about it. And Oklahoma State is better at home than on the road. No, that's no news flash there.
Right.
Most teams are, right? But there is a difference, stark difference in that team at home versus on the road. Since they played Texas Tech last, they're 2-3, but their 2 wins did come at home by 9 over Utah and 13 over Arizona State.
Okay.
And you know, for Texas Tech and it's not, you said it, ain't going to be an easy game by any stretch of the imagination. For Tech to win this game, they're going to have to get right again defensively. You know, I mean, 3 out of Tech's last 4 games, they just haven't been very good defensively. You mentioned ebb, flow, tides, that sort of thing. Cycles, and Tech is on a bad defensive cycle right now, and but they held them to 54 points in that first game.
Yeah,
they need to get back to that. Now, if you remember that game, Tech was up 18 pretty late in the game.
Oh, Oklahoma State came back. Yeah, that's right.
Defensive collapse for about 4 minutes of bad defense, and that allowed them to cut the lead down to 3 points with about 5 minutes to play.
Yeah.
So that was a kind of a weird game, but yes, I mean, whatever the problems are defensively right now, they need to get them ironed out and play a consistent defensive game against Oklahoma State. If they do that, I like Tech's chances.
Well, I'll say this. It hadn't been boring. The games have been, all the Big 12 games have been very exciting. You know,
a little too exciting.
A little too exciting for sure. Double overtime like that. And Chapman, I just want to go back to that real quick. Put up one of the best games in college basketball, like the last couple of decades or something like that. There's a bunch of stats out there. I know it's one of the best in Tech history, right, in terms of scoring. But when you throw the rebounding in there, I mean, it's a monster game. So that guy is just a star, and I'm hopefully he continues to stay healthy. You know, because I think with a healthy Chapman, with a healthy D5, this team is really as good as anybody in the Big 12 for sure. Maybe in the country, but we get more input coming up. Texas Tech goes to the road where they've been excellent this year. 2 p.m. Saturday, they take on Oklahoma State in Stillwater. Mighty Joe, great stuff from you as always. Thank you all for watching, and until next time.